All great scenes are ultimately about one of two things: love or death. The greatest driving forces in our lives, the pursuit of love or the fear of death. It is a truly remarkable scene which is able to be literally about one of these things, but actually about the other. An excellent modern example of how this can be done is the hospital scene in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. Welcome to 10 Minute Textualism. As you must know by now, be warned, there will be spoilers. For those of you who haven't seen Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, it's about a high school senior called Greg who navigates his way through life only wishing to be considered everyone's acquaintance, staying clear of any particular clique, believing that's what he needs to do in order to survive in the frightening world of being a teenager. However, one day Greg's mother says that he needs to hang out with Rachel, a girl from down the street who's been diagnosed with leukemia. This sets Greg off on a journey where he must confront his own isolation, which culminates in his visit to Rachel's bedside in hospital on prom night. For American teens, prom night has many semiotic signifiers. It is a night for expressions of love, and often a time when certain rites of passage are fulfilled. However, Greg will spend this evening in a hospital, a place that is more obviously coded as where people go to die. This is rather ironically foreshadowed to us at the beginning of the scene, when Greg is nearly run over by an ambulance on his way into the building. It appears from the outset that this will be a scene which will literally be about death, when it should more traditionally be about love. This depicts the dichotomy of the scene at its most basic level. It is to be one where both love and death are examined. During the feature, Greg has been in the process of making a short film for Rachel. This will be the first time that he will have shown it to her, an act which will take on a huge amount of metaphorical significance. Structurally, this is the part of the narrative where our hero must enter into the innermost cave, the scene where they must do battle with the antagonist of the piece, which has been plaguing them since Act 1. During this moment of the film, our protagonist must suffer their moment of darkness, where all hope is lost, which is usually accompanied by an instance of near, actual, or metaphorical death, so they are able to leave that old life behind and finally realise their new identity in Act 5, where they will return to their ordinary world with an elixir of knowledge that they have retrieved from their adventure world. For Greg, he is his own worst enemy, and this is the moment where he can finally defeat evil and admit that he does not want to be a recluse any longer, and ultimately confess his love for Rachel. As he puts the piece on, he states, "It's not what I want to say to you." The subtext screams right out of the frame and into the audience. What he's actually saying by creating the film is, "I love you." Although Greg has tried to admit his feelings for Rachel before, he has only superficially explored them as he half-heartedly asks her to prom during the midpoint of the film. Now he is truly able to embrace how he feels, and metaphorically shows her exactly what she means to him, using the film as a visual representation of his love for her. Throughout the film, director Alfonso Gomez-Rejon has used the camera to heighten Greg's ideas about the world being an acutely organised place that he is able to structure in his own head with categorised groups of people. He believes that everything has a place, and the framing of the piece reinforces this with specifically composed shots and transitions that rigidly obey the rule of thirds, keeping things perpendicular and within quadrants of the screen. However, as Rachel and Greg's friendship develops, Gomez-Rejon deliberately begins to break these rules, with shots drifting around, or making greater use of negative space within the frame to highlight Greg's changing mindset as he begins to examine his ways of thinking. This technique is at its most extreme within this scene. Greg has finally spiritually altered his outlook on life and is able to see the world differently. It also brings us some of the tighter close-ups of the piece, allowing for greater intimacy between us and the characters. However, this is tragedy, and growth has come too late for Greg as it did for Lester Burnham, Charles Foster Kane, and Macbeth. The non-diegetic sound of Brian Eno's The Big Ship is broken momentarily for Rachel to cough, signalling to us that she is indeed dying. Greg rushes to get help, and her mother and a nurse arrive to try and attend to her. The music continues though, only getting louder and more overbearing to mask the frantic attempts of those in the room to assist her. Nothing, it seems, can stop what is about to happen. Rachel allows herself a single moment to lock eyes with her mother to say goodbye, before returning to look at the screen in front of her. Now though, Greg is stood in front of it, obscuring her view. This literally joins Greg with the film itself. Rachel continues to stare. She doesn't just love what he has done for her, she loves him too. At her moment of death, all she wants to do is look at him one last time and confess her feelings for him. Greg is then ushered out of the room into the bright halogen lights of the corridor. He has gone through his moment in the cave, fully vanquished his spiritual enemy, and has now been born anew, back into the real world, where he will be able to showcase the lessons he has learnt in his adventure world, as he tries to navigate life without Rachel for the first time. Lessons that she has taught him. Despite everything pointing towards the awful things which have to happen during this section of the film, the scene actually offers a moment of catharsis for an audience. It is one where we now understand that both our characters' journeys are completed, with them finally being able to show one another the things that they have been trying to since we first met them at the beginning of the narrative. Although it is a scene which is literally about death, all we can see is the love that Greg and Rachel have for one another. An amazing handcrafted moment that easily reduces even the most stone-hearted to tears. So, what do you guys think? Are there any other things that you think a scene could really be about other than love or death? Do you recognise any other innermost cave moments from film or TV? Or has this video helped you with your own writing or filmmaking? Leave us any thoughts that you have below, and remember that you can like and subscribe to get more 10-minute textualism straight to your homepage each week.